Okay, so let's start this NFT talk. So this talk is going to be coming from my perspective in the market. So we're going to start off with where this is coming from. So my family has now been asking me about a lot of NFT stuff, right? And I want to help them. I also do not want them to lose an absolute shit ton of money, because that is very, very, very easy to do inside of the crypto space. This is basically going to be my dad's birthday present, because he keeps on asking about NFTs, and it's a very, very long conversation to have with someone to try and explain all the things about the NFT market, right? So right now, also happy birthday, Dad. Sorry, it's a bit late. This is also going on YouTube, so if you've got any questions in the chat, go ahead and ask. The more questions, the better. This right here is who you are talking to, right? This number right here. That is the current value I hold in one of my wallets. And the large majority of that, as you can see, at least in this wallet, is NFTs. This is primarily within the sandbox, right? Now, I have been involved in crypto now for 6.5, almost 7 years. I've been involved with NFTs since about 2017. And I've been looking for very specific things within the NFT market. You are currently speaking to or listening to a professional within this space. My job is involved in this. You know all of this. And this is where I am coming from when it comes to NFTs. What this talk will not cover. This talk will not cover any specific projects or shilling of something unique or special, or being like, oh my God, it's so amazing, you have to get in on this now. That is not the point of this, and unfortunately, the NFT market is a big fucking mess, and it's not that easy to discern what is worth it from what's not worth it. What this talk will be operated in the past, how they're likely to operate in the future, where the market is likely going, and how to try and spot any specific project within the crypto space that might hold some intrinsic value over more than 1 week. The best place to start off is the place that everyone else starts off in the entire crypto space. That place is, what are NFTs? An NFT is a non-fungible token. Now, I'm fairly certain everyone has heard that word and is sick to death of it. They probably hate the absolute shit out of hearing the words NFT. But there is value in the space. There is a reason this exists. So what an NFT, technically speaking, is it is a protocol that is attached to a smart contract that allows you to create something that is of a unique digital scarcity. You can create a unique number of a specific thing that cannot be duplicated elsewhere, or cannot be verifiably duplicated elsewhere. There will be many frauds, as there currently already are. There will be many fakes, as there currently already are. But there will only be one verifiable source of an NFT of any particular project. NFTs are the same in this, the broadest sense of the word, are the same as buying a token, investing in on a project. There is almost no difference between the two. And this is because NFTs are technically based off of a special protocol within each unique network or ecosystem. Now, the first ones that this came from is the Ethereum network, and they came from 2 protocols. The first protocol is ERC 721. Now, what ERC 721 did for us is allowed us to create some form of object, some digital recording of data that has a limited scarcity, that is non-fungible, that is unique within the digital space. Then you also have ERC 1155. Now 1155 allows the creation of this same non-fungible token alongside the creation of other fungible tokens, things that can be swapped out for one another. This is like gold in a video game. This is like any form of non-unique token that can then be duplicated in some format or one form or another. This is very important to have both within something like gaming, right? For something like artworks, ERC 721 is generally fine, right? You mint a certain number. There can never be any more than that specific number that you've minted. It cannot be altered or changed in any format or any way. And it is there, it exists, it lives on the blockchain. Let's get into some of the minutiae around all of these networks, all of these problems that we currently see within NFTs. Where is, and chat, you can answer this. Ilgi, you can answer this for me, or anyone in the chat. Where is the value proposition within NFTs? What value proposition do NFTs hold? Aside from make a lot of money. The answer to that, because if they have a utility, okay, so that's a good one. You are looking at a deeper case of it, right? But the fundamental value proposition of any NFT in the space, because not all NFTs have utility, but all NFTs have digital scarcity. But it's important to know, and you kind of pointed this out, digital scarcity does not equal utility. It also does not equal value. Just because something is scarce does not make it valuable. I am sure that there is only one version of the mathematics test I wrote in grade 6, which I hated myself for quite a while, where I only got 55% for a certain test, right? That one fucked with me forever. But just because there's only one unique version of that doesn't make it valuable. It has no value. It is a piece of paper I wrote on a long time ago and no one knows where it is. That's not valuable. It's worthless. It's useless. So just because something is digitally scarce does not mean it has a use or it has a value. And that's the trick with NFTs, right? Everyone keeps on telling you, oh, it's scarce, there's a limited quantity and that's why it's valuable. But that's a trick. That's the obfuscation. That's the magician pulling the rabbit out of the hat and turning it into a bird that flies away and you never see again. There is actually no value there. The question then becomes, why is digital scarcity not enough? Why isn't it enough to hold value just because there is digital scarcity? And the best way I can think to explain this is through a personal anecdote of what I've seen in my life, right? So if I look at a subject in university, there's a subject called actuarial science. You take actuarial science because you want to become an actuary. Once you leave a university, you are a junior actuary, but you still have a bunch of independent examinations to complete. Now, when you take those independent examinations, it doesn't matter how well you do. It matters how well everyone else does in the space. So if everyone gets 90% and 5 people get 95% for a test, for that one exam, they will pass the people who got 95% and tell everyone who got 90% that they failed. They do this on purpose, like they actively, purposefully do this because it limits the amount of actuaries there are in existence. Now, if you want to know why they do that, that's because then you have a limited amount of qualified individuals that can then pump up the value of their particular degree or their particular value in a workspace. and it gatekeeps. It keeps people out, and it means that you don't flood the market with actuaries, and actuaries can then demand a very high salary, which companies can then use to justify anything on their payroll. Blah, 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 blah. This is what's known as artificial scarcity in its most base form. NFTs, especially in the art space, largely use artificial scarcity. This is the obfuscation of value within the space. It makes sure that if you are not paying attention, you think something is far more valuable than what it actually is, right? Knowing that about actuaries, you could find a really bright guy or a really bright girl who's gone and wrote those tests and failed because the system is set out for them to fail, but they can still do any job as an actuary perfectly fine. If you've got scarcity without utility, you are looking at a very dangerous situation. You can have scarcity that then develops utility later. Now, this is something like what Bored Ape Yacht Club is trying to do by giving like real world events and blah, 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 blah. But initially, something like CryptoPunks, something like Bored Ape Yacht Club, all of that, it was just scarce. It didn't do anything else. It was just a scarce project. That's all it was. They were giving them away for free at some point. And now look at their value because it's just skyrocketed and people have decided that this is now a cultural movement, that people are buying into these monkeys, and they've decided that it's now a status symbol, like owning a Rolex over owning any other watch that still tells the time. Same with cars, right? Cars are a status symbol. If it's got 4 wheels and engine and it works, that's fine. But, you know, people would rather drive a Ferrari than they would drive a Fiat. It's that simple. Why then would someone go ahead and use NFTs over any other mechanism? So why use NFTs at all? Right? What is the purpose? What's the point then? There's a lot of scams in the space. There's a lot of people manipulating prices. There's a lot of people using lending protocols. So there's a few reasons you want to use NFTs for certain projects. The first is you've got a trustless system. And what this means is you now no longer have to rely on people within any certain ecosystem that can utilize an NFT, right? Now, this doesn't mean that you are free of the responsibility of having to go out and actively research or look at Etherscan or find out where these NFTs come from and what they're actually doing. There is a lot of responsibility on the user of figuring out what an NFT is actually worth. But if you can do that, you're working within a trustless environment. You can find out what is a scam from what's not. You can find out which project is good from which project is worthless. The next reason is the verifiability element. How many fakes throughout history have been sold? How many art pieces have been replicated and then sold as a duplicate that people couldn't tell apart from the original? That is not a problem that NFTs have. And as the space evolves, we're going to see a lot more verification channels to ensure that you know that any NFT you purchased is verifiable. If I take a look at the land I own currently in the sandbox, if you look at OpenSea, where it's listed, you will see a nice little blue check mark next to the piece of land that I own. You'll see this nice little blue check mark. This is verifiable, at least on this platform, as being a real actual part of the sandbox. I haven't bought a fake. I haven't bought something that is not a part of that environment, but is attempting to be. This verifiability element, it needs to get better. It needs to become something that is automated within the NFT world. And over time, it will, because people will eventually get sick and tired of getting screwed over by fakes, by copycats, by any kind of system that ruins their ability to find the actual real thing. So that's a problem that needs to be solved and kind of will be solved over time. The other thing that makes NFTs a pretty good system for any kind of art, for any kind of video game, for any kind of protocol that uses these NFTs is the fact that they are on a smart contract. What this means is that the code is locked, right? Once it's the protocol they've used has been made and minted, it is locked in place. What this means is they cannot go and change the way an NFT operates. When you walk into the space and you buy something, when you purchase some form of NFT from a certain environment, it will continue to operate in the exact same manner that it did before that it's been verified to operate within. No one can go and alter that NFT in one format or another. Now, there are ways around this that we are going to talk about later, but that is the general concept. If you've minted something on the blockchain, it will remain as it is. The only thing that can happen to it is it can change which wallet it is in. Then, on top of that, we've now got a public access system. All blockchains, or the large majority of blockchains out there that are very popular, are public. You can go look up any transaction on any wallet over any space of time that you want. So the public have full access to all forms of transactions over any wallet ever. So if I go and look at Etherscan right now, and I go find any wallet or any transaction that's occurred, I can, if I've got the wallet number, if I've got the wallet value, I can go look at any single transaction that has occurred over time on that wallet. I can track that. I can see what's going, what transaction is happening now. This wallet in particular had a transaction happen 11 hours ago, right? If he was going through a transaction right now, this would pop up here. I can tell what's being held in this wallet. All of these things are public, which means you can track where the NFT is going. You can track where everything's going because a protocol does not care about lying to your face. A protocol just executes on code. So if the code is good, you're fine. So that's why you would want to use NFTs. That's a very broad scope aspect of it. There are some things that you need to know about NFTs when thinking about all these public access elements, all these verifiability elements, all these trustless systems, and where the code itself generally can't be manipulated. There are people who use these elements that you would look at to obfuscate what they're doing. Not everyone out there is able to track wallets on Etherscan, mostly because they don't even know about its existence. All they've heard is that the blockchain is some trustless system that you can 100% put your faith in. Scam artists aren't stupid. They know that they can fuck with you using a system that you automatically think you can trust. So what they do is they go into a lending protocol. I've explained this before, but the idea is they'll go to a lending protocol. They'll lend out, 500 ETH from that protocol. They will then go and mint some NFT using some of this as a transaction fee, and then they will take this 500 ETH, get a secondary wallet going, and send the remainder, let's say it's 499 ETH to this wallet. I've tracked this. I've seen this. I'm using this as an example because I've actively seen this happen. So now you've got wallet 1, and you've got wallet 2. Now wallet 1 is currently holding this NFT. Wallet 2 then purchases this NFT from wallet 1, which now makes it look like this NFT is worth 499 ETH. But really, it's just the same person playing with two wallets. Then they'll get a wallet 3 involved. Then they'll get a wallet 4 involved. Then they'll get a wallet 5 involved. And they'll keep on doing this, which then creates a price history for this NFT right here. And then what will happen is somewhere down the line, wallet 7, 8, or 9 will then sell off this NFT to someone who is excluded from this loop, someone who is like, oh wow, this NFT is really valuable. You know what? This guy is selling this NFT for 90 ETH. He now holds this NFT. Its value is now being sold at 90 ETH. Even though the price of this thing was 500 ETH or 499 ETH. So he transfers his ETH to wallet number 9. And he gets the NFT in return. You've kind of made 90 ETH out of nothing. And you can use that minus some small transaction fee to pay back your initial loan of 500 ETH that you took out. So you technically just made 90 ETH out of nothing. You sold it to this guy. He's now holding this NFT that's not worth a damn thing. And you run away with 90 ETH. That is the scam. That is what's happening in the art space. There's also other parts of it like money laundering, like certain manipulative scams, like promises that never come through, blah, 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 blah. But that's the general process of how people are scamming others within the art space. And that is specifically why I think it is very dangerous, especially now, to enter into the art space of NFTs. It's exploded. The floor price of a bunch of different projects is really high. It's really stupid. And most of it is not real wealth. It is the obfuscation of money laundering or trying to scam people out of money. It's just that simple. It's just that straightforward. If you track the transactions using certain wallets, you can find that it's really a whole bunch of wallets that are talking to each other that took out money from a lending protocol and are trying to get that value out of you. That's how you end up with an ETH rock being worth a stupid amount of money. That's how you end up with a bunch of projects that have no value looking like they're worth a lot of money when they're actually not worth a damn thing. Generally, when it comes to it, how do you then avoid any kind of ecosystem or space where you can be very heavily scammed by an NFT project? Well, if you're in the art space, there's a few indicators. Indicator number one is you want to see that they're building not just a bunch of NFTs that are randomly given out or randomly sold. What you'll want is you'll want to find a project that's giving out NFTs for free. That's generally a good one. You'll want to find an NFT project that is building a community, something that's got novelty and value as an art commodity that will hold its value over time. Let's say if Timmy, 10 years old, minted an NFT that was his little paper drawings that he never cared about and was just like, fuck it, might as well just mint them. Someone might buy them, but they're not going to keep their value in money. If Michelangelo were to come back to life and repaint the Sistine Chapel for us, or repaint a new Sistine Chapel, and have those then minted as NFTs, those would hold value because that is a unique artist with a unique skill that does something novel that cannot be replicated or duplicated in any specific way. That makes those works unique. But there are most definitely still scam artists out there who will try and trick you out of money, who will manipulate you in whichever way they can to get that money out of you, or use someone else's work to get that money out of you. Another reason to avoid the art space, if you do not know what you're doing, if you're very, very new to it, is simply that you do not own the copyright of any of these artworks. So if I go here, just because you own this picture of this monkey does not give you the right to alter, manipulate, or change this picture. You do not own the copyright that goes with this artwork. All you really own is the position in line to look at this artwork on the wall and say, that artwork is something I've paid to stand in front of and look at and hold in my wallet. Now, there's another problem with NFTs that links to this, especially in the art space, is most of these images are not stored on the blockchain. What is stored on the blockchain is a web link. Now, this is done because it is very expensive to mint this information onto the blockchain. Both energy-wise and price-wise, it's very expensive to take an image and then mint it on the blockchain. But it's not so expensive to just mint a web link that links to a website. And now there's the problem, is what happens if that website goes down? You do not have an NFT with a monkey picture. You have an NFT with a broken web link attached to it that you don't own the copyright to, that you can't change or alter or say is your IP, is your full ownership because you don't own the copyright to it. That is the danger with art. It is a space that I currently think is highly speculative. It is a space that I think needs to collapse. It needs to drop through the floor. All these artworks are speculative. The people who are involved in these artworks, in the art space of NFTs, are really, really fucking annoying because they are not really artists that are trying to extract value out of people. That is all they are doing. That is why it is such a dangerous space, and if you know nothing about art, if you know nothing about the art sphere, and it's not your specialization, I automatically recommend you stay the hell away from it. I will not touch NFT art. I will not buy any NFT art because the space needs to collapse. It needs to plunge through the floor. And when it does collapse, then you will start to see the real value of any art NFT come out into the public. This is because after all the money scams are done, after all these kind of bullshit, crappy art things are out of the way, that is when the real artists will be left minting NFTs and every other scam artist will have moved on to something else. So that is my reasoning for not touching the art space. But does this make all NFTs across all platforms, across all uses, useless? Absolutely not. It simply does not. This is because NFTs do have utility when used correctly. Now, utility is the one big indicator you can use to discern whether a project is complete bullshit or whether there is some value involved in what you're looking at. There are many spaces that NFTs could be used. And this comes down not to this system. The blockchain kind of already does that. It's not down to the fact that it's locked into a smart contract, because we can do that through other methods using a smart contract. It's not down to public access because we could use regulations and laws and blah, blah, blah to stop all of that stuff. But it comes down to the verifiability element of utility. In the future, at some future stage, you will be able to tell apart any digital fake from any authentic, real digital piece. Now, can you tell me why verifiability would be the element of utility that is so absolutely important to NFTs? IP. So there you go, intellectual property, right? That's a huge one. Why are we not using NFTs with copyright? Think about how large the copyright industry is, right? How much money it takes just to make a verified blueprint of something that you've generated, copyright it, have that under an international patent, and then if someone copies it, go through international law, get a lawyer, and make sure that you get what you deserve out of it. How fucking impossible is that? How much money does that take? How many creators or inventors over the years have been absolutely screwed over because someone else stole their designs and said they were theirs? We don't have that problem with NFTs. If you had a verifiable system of NFTs that did patenting and copywriting, what you would be able to do is upload and mint a design that would show a specific date on it. And that date would then be marked as yours. You wouldn't have to go through this whole long bullshit thing of, oh, this company says that they started work a week before you, or you actually copied them and they're suing you, even though it was your design. You would have a mintable patent that you have in your wallet of your design that you could then go to a court of law and say, this is verified, this is the date, these guys stole it from me, I deserve my piece of the pie because they stole my idea and made profit off of it. So IP is one of them. Another one is real estate. Another one is business contracts, right? I cannot tell you how many times I've had a business contract with someone I was doing precariat work for, where after I'd signed the contract, they attempted to amend the contract. Now, they would amend the contract because with the deal they had signed, they realized that was not in their favor. And I've been screwed over by this before, where they said, no, it was like that from day one. And I had no way of proving that it was from day one like that. Even if I had a copy of the exact same document that was saved on my PC, they could then just use the power of the law against me because I would not have the funds to be able to deal with them. They would leave me broke and on the street. They would fuck me up in a court of law because they have the money to do that. If you have a business contract that's minted into an NFT, they can't do that because you now have a verified system where no one can manipulate a contract and all things that are written into that contract are as the original states. Imagine, again, here's the verifiability element, right? You can now verify that contract. Again, you can do the same with real estate. You can do the same with music. You can do the same with any IP out there in existence. That is why NFTs are so valuable. But unfortunately, in this current state, the value of NFTs are not being looked at. NFTs are being specifically used for scams, money laundering, and some art. That's kind of sad. And this is kind of why anyone who understands even a little bit about NFTs is incredibly fucking annoyed with the NFT space. Because you've got all these great intuitive systems that can make life a hell of a lot easier, that can get rid of a ton of bureaucracy in the system. But instead of using NFTs for those, we're bullshitting people with monkey pictures. But there is a silver lining to this. Currently, if you talk to someone about NFTs who knows about a surface level of information, they're probably going to tell you something incredibly short-sighted, but true. Oh, NFTs, aren't those the things that people use to launder money? Oh, NFTs, do you mean those monkey pictures? You mean those things that people scam other people out of money with JPEGs for? And they are correct. But where have we seen this before? Where in the world have we heard the words, this is just a scam used by criminals? This is just something that is used by someone who wants to do something illegal. And the answer is Bitcoin. 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, the only real thing Bitcoin was used for and traded for was illicit activities or illicit objects. So your drugs, your slaves, your hiding money at the time when you could get away with it, your hitman jobs, things like that, the things that are highly illegal. But look at Bitcoin today. People are not using Bitcoin to do shit that's illegal. People are using Bitcoin as a transaction service because it's just better than what the traditional systems give us to function with. NFTs are going through the same growing pain, and this kind of needs to happen. This is something that it's good that this is happening now because we want this to happen now when NFTs are still new and young and being exploited, because then we can figure out exactly how to stop this happening in the future when their real value starts becoming a thing. Also, there's, things like regulation, laws, all of that, blah, blah, blah. Those will catch up with NFTs, just like they're starting to catch up with crypto now. So let's go through some of the dumbest things you will hear people say about NFTs. And I'm going to break down why some of them are incredibly stupid. So the first thing people will tell you about NFTs is they like to use an example like video games. They say something like, you will get to swap gaming items between gaming titles. Imagine if you got the sword in World of Warcraft and then you took it over to Call of Duty Warzone. That is fucking stupid. That is not going to happen. Those two game studios, those two developers would have to collaborate together and try and figure out a way that this NFT verifies a specific object in the game that can be used over both systems. What is more likely to happen is that people will start building out an ecosystem under which specific games exist. So one game studio will give you an NFT. So a good example of this is probably Dark Souls. One of my favorite games ever, incredibly difficult if you're a noob, but it makes for a good example here. Now, do any of you know anything about Dark Souls? If not, that's fine. This is one of my favorite weapons in Dark Souls. It is known as the Moonlight Greatsword. The Moonlight Greatsword appears in multiple versions of Dark Souls. Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne. It shows up in an old pixel art game, if I remember correctly. From Software loves the Moonlight Greatsword. But the point is, this sword shows up in multiple games across the same franchise. It is fine in Dark Souls that you get to go out and find the sword every single time. But what if you've got a story mode? What if a game company wants to create a set of games that are all linked together in some very loose function that reward their players for being loyal to them for a long period of time? Oh, you're that guy who bought Demon Souls 12 years ago. We see you're playing Dark Souls 3. As a thank you, we know that you got the specific achievement of going out and getting the Moonlight Greatsword. So if you would like, you can continue your play in Dark Souls 3 using your character that has now been moved over to the new system, and you can immediately have your Moonlight Greatsword. The important part here about this is not that you get to use the Moonlight Greatsword. It's that you can't lose a save file. You can't go and delete a save file and then all of your items are gone and you need to start over and you're screwed just because you never thought there was going to be a Dark Souls 3. There was a continuation of that same game franchise. So what it does is it expands out the ability for game studios to create things within their own universes that can then benefit players later on down the line. The problem here is you will not be able to take the Moonlight Greatsword and then go throw it into another video game made by another company that doesn't give a shit about Dark Souls. That will be another universe entirely. So if anyone tells you, oh, you will be able to use the same item across multiple games, blah, 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 you won't. You likely won't. Game studios don't cooperate like that. They like to make their own stuff. The next dumbest thing you are likely to hear is NFTs are just another method for companies to extract microtransactions from you. And that is not expressly false. In one form or another, really, really shitty companies like Electronic Arts, like Obsidian, like any of those companies will try their best to extract money out of their customers using NFTs. This does not mean that that is the only use for NFTs. And companies who do only use NFTs for microtransactions are likely to fail because gamers will not like that kind of system. They will avoid it like the plague because they already fucking hate how NFTs are being implemented in their video games, and I can't blame them. If you're dealing with a predatory company, yes, they are going to use NFTs like that. Stay away from them. But there's another element to NFTs. You can mint an entire video game as an NFT. You can mint an asset as an NFT. You can mint your save file as an NFT. Any item you earn in-game, you can mint as an NFT. What does this mean? This means that if you are a game dev and you want to go make a video game, but you don't have that much artistic skill, you can go out and in a decentralized manner, purchase specific assets or specific pieces of code that you uniquely need for your game, put them together, which is your time saver, which can be unique to you because there will only be a limited amount of those assets that cannot be used in other video games out there. So they will be created by some artist out there who's looking to sell them, but you can ensure that they are only ever in your game by purchasing that NFT, which helps you build a unique and special video game, which is generally a problem that a lot of video game devs have had with art assets. If I go to the Unity art asset store right now, Unity is an engine that people use to build video games. It's very popular. But if you go to the art asset store, none of these are unique. None of these are special. All of these art assets can be bought by you and can be bought by everyone else. What this means is that you are not creating a unique video game. You are creating a cookie cutter video game using all these elements. However, using NFTs, you can ensure that the unique asset you get from an artist remains a unique asset within your video game alone, which is very special, which is very unique. So this solves the problem of a guy who might be very, very good at programming, but absolutely trash at art, and he just does not have the funds required to go and hire someone full-time to make 4 or 5 assets for his video game that he really, really needs. But he can go and purchase them separately now, which is, it cuts down on cost. The artist gets paid. It gets used in the video game. Artist gets exposure as much as they love being paid in exposure, but it creates an ecosystem. It gives NFTs heavy amounts of utility. So the next dumbest thing you're likely to hear that is very mainstream about this is NFT minting is going to destroy the planet because of its energy usage. And to that I have to say, have you not been fucking paying attention? Ecosystems like Bitcoin, proof of stake networks exist and proof of work networks exist. Proof of work networks have to pay an electricity bill. And guess what? Anyone who is securing transactions, who's burning all that energy, really, really does not like giving up their profit margins to some electrical company out there. So you've got 2 options. The first is to go exploit some third world country where electricity is cheap. That'll only work for a while because eventually the government will step in because blackouts are never good for a country. The second option is the one where you've now got an incentive to move everything to as green a network as possible, to use solar panels, to use geothermal power, to use wind power, to use everything that is renewable as opposed to expendable through a coal-fired power plant that's powering the city, which means you've now got to push towards renewable energies. So it's a short-term problem. It's not going to doom the planet, and anyone telling you that is too fucking stupid to think past their arm length. It is just non-viable for someone to continually pay an electricity bill for something like mining. Instead, they will go out of their way to ensure that they've got a green network that they pay one bill for, maybe some maintenance fees, because that is a hell of a lot cheaper than it is paying for electricity long term. The next dumbest thing you're likely to hear is NFTs are only used for money laundering, scams, and Ponzi schemes. And like I've said before, this is the same as Bitcoin in its early days. This is the same as when Bitcoin was only used for drugs or only used for illicit activities. Yes, it's going to happen. It's part of the evolution of the system. It's going to collapse, just like Bitcoin did, and then it is going to recover as people find better, more functional uses for these systems. So, I've spoken a lot about utility here, and I've spoken a lot about the video game space. And I'm speaking about the video game space specifically because it is very much adjacent to NFTs currently. So that is the likely wellspring that is going to pop up next. It is not the only wellspring, but it is the most likely one. Now, I specifically like to focus on NFTs in video games because I've been playing video games for a very, very long time. I'm nearly 30 now, which means I've been playing video games for more than 70% of my life. I understand video games. I comprehend what makes a good video game versus a bad one. I understand why they will work and why they won't work. I understand what happens to a player base over time. If we focus down on just video games, just NFTs in video games, because that is likely to be where you're going to find the most use, the most functionality within the short term, this is where you are currently going to find the next amount of utility, right? Automatically, NFTs in video games should have utility. They're not always going to, but they should. So utility is a big component here, which makes them useful to people instead of just being a monkey picture that you look at. The next part of NFTs in video games is this actually allows devs to offload work to the blockchain and focus on making a good video game. So, like I said with the art assets, like I said with the video game assets, you now get to offload a bunch of work that the devs would otherwise have to do onto the blockchain, which means they can focus on making a better video game. They can focus on making something that is fun and enjoyable for players, as opposed to worrying about the minutiae of a transaction system within their game. Instead of worrying about MTX, microtransactions, or any other system, that they can kind of just copy paste that from somewhere else that has a good special system that works for them because everything is open source. The next reason it's great for video games is generally because it's a good space to expand in, right? It's a really, really nice space to expand out content in because there are different types of video game developers. NFTs suit a wide variety of studios and game devs. They are scalable. They can be used by large companies. They can be used by indie companies. They can be used by one guy in his bedroom who's spent the last 5 years programming his magnum opus of a video game. They don't discriminate within the usage of video games. If you've got one guy trying to use a highly complex video game engine, he's screwed because there's so much work he has to do that he will die before he gets his video game out there. He probably needs 100 to 200 people to do it if it's like a massive title. But if you're an indie developer, you don't need that much. You can be kind of light on everything that you do, right? So NFTs suit both use cases. NFTs suit both big companies who qualify here, who know how to use NFTs correctly as opposed to being scam artists, and they can suit indie developers who are looking for something quick or looking for something that they can't do, but they can find an NFT of that work. If I look at the NFT space right now, we have to ask the question, who do we avoid and who do we look for? Now, personally, my opinion is you should avoid all old companies using NFTs. Now, why is this? Why would you avoid old companies that are attempting to use NFTs in their work? The reason you want to avoid them is because they are not built for a decentralized network. The best they can do is probably use NFTs for microtransactions to screw over the player and try and make more money for their shareholders. They are not designed in order to use NFTs correctly. A good example of this is Ubisoft. You can go look this up. Ubisoft failed heavily. They got a massive backlash from their audience because they attempted to use NFTs to make money and turn their audience into pay pigs, into just another thing that generates money for their game. Because they just want money while it's fresh. Exactly. They are opportunistic. They've got shareholders that they give a fuck about. They don't care about their players, they care about the shareholders. And so they are there to make money for themselves and for their shareholders. So they will be opportunistic, they will be predatory, they will use NFTs in every single way that they should not be used. So then where do we look? Well, we look at companies that are still building themselves. These are companies that are designed specifically for the NFT space. So these are companies like The Sandbox. These are companies like Axie Infinity. These are companies that are new, that are fresh-faced, and they have a completely different way of thinking because their business model is designed to work within the NFT space. They are designed to be decentralized. Old school companies are not designed to be decentralized, which is why they will likely die or be as opportunistic and predatory as possible and not survive. If I go through other examples aside from Ubisoft, Stalker 2. Stalker is one of my favorite video games. Stalker 2 is coming out, I think, later this year or soon. Stalker 2 tried to implement NFTs. Their community fucking destroyed them over this because they hate the idea of NFTs in this game because it was not designed for NFTs. They just kind of slapped it in there thinking, we'll make some extra cash off of this. After watching all this backlash, so Sega has started having second thoughts about putting NFTs in their games. Sega has done this because they've seen the backlash. They are shitting themselves because everyone's thinking this is going to be predatory, and it likely would be. Square Enix and Konami are trying their best next. So Square Enix is... it doesn't matter what they are. They're old school video game companies that are trying their luck, and they are going to get burned because they're going to do it in the wrong way. Who is currently winning then? Who is currently getting NFTs right? Who is currently in the NFT space right now and doing an exceptional job? The answer to that is games like Axie Infinity, where you take these little pets, these little animals, and you battle them against each other, and you raise them, and you summon new ones, and blah, blah, blah. As you can see, it's not a very fancy game. This just shows you how early we are to the space. You've also got one that launched in 2017 that was such a big deal that it actually delayed and like heavily congested the Ethereum network, called CryptoKitties. These NFTs started back in 2017. I did not jump on them because I thought they were a scam. Today, these things are worth like half an Ethereum each. It's insane. And their volume was so large, their transactional volume was so large that they actually slowed down the entire Ethereum network at the time. The other people that are winning within the video game space are The Sandbox. Now, I've got a big bet in The Sandbox. I'm invested in it, full disclaimer. I think these guys have all the right makings to make a massive game. I don't think they're the only ones, right? Another good example of this is Decentraland. They are also making a kind of metaverse. They are making different kinds of elements that are integrated into crypto. If you've noticed a trend here, all the people getting NFTs wrong are all the old school companies. All the people getting NFTs right and getting heavy amounts of investment are people building from scratch with a completely different business model. It's not the same people. because they've got two different mindsets entirely. If we look at gaming in the blockchain space, it is most likely the next thing to explode. Does this mean you need to rush in and purchase a whole bunch of NFTs in some video game, or just grab whatever video game you can at a low price? Absolutely not. Mostly because we are still in the very, very, very beginning phases of NFTs. The people right now who are making money are the people designing these companies, designing these games, developing it, not the people investing in on the land, not the people who are buying a million different NFTs. The companies are currently making money. They are the most surefire people to make money. So there's two ways to exploit this if you are looking to get into NFTs. The first is to look into which company is going out there and building NFTs. And instead of buying their NFTs, you invest in on their project. A good example is instead of going and buying SLP or land or some other form of NFT, is to go and buy the token on a good project with solid fundamentals and wait to see where it goes. I did this with sand. It worked. I went the extra step with sand purely because I believed it had the ability to go even further. And it did. If you're looking for a safer play in the NFT space, do not go out and buy the NFTs. Find good projects that have a future in the gaming space, or at least that's the space currently to look at, and go for their token. It's easy. Most of them are listed on exchanges, though that's your best bet. If you are going to take the extra step and get in on the NFTs, there are certain things you need to understand. First is that NFTs are not nearly as liquid as you think they are. You cannot just sell an NFT whenever you feel like it. And if you can, a lot of the time you will not be selling it for the price you would like to be selling it at. That is generally how real world assets work as well. The housing market here in South Africa is not that fantastic. So people who bought a home that was worth 3 million 5 years ago will probably sell it for 2 million, or they're just incapable of selling it because it's illiquid currently because no one wants to buy it. It's incredibly difficult and you need to wait a really long time. So you need to be careful about that if you are specifically targeting going in on NFTs. The safer bet, the safer play is to go in on the token behind the project instead of the NFT. Right? That is also why the art space is so dangerous, because there is no token. There is no larger project. There is no greater aspiration. There is just the art and just the NFT. And there's no promise that any of that is going to hold any value whatsoever. What do we need to focus down on if we want to see a blockchain game with NFTs that is likely to succeed? There are certain indicators we want to look for, right? And these are not indicators, all of these indicators, some of them don't really exist anymore. I mean, it's not that they don't exist anymore, it's that they don't exist yet. What do we want to look for an NFT project of video games that is going to succeed, right? If you want to find a good video game project, you're looking for something that has feeless transactions, because video game players currently do not like the idea of paying money just to transfer an item from one space to another. So you want something that costs them absolutely nothing, which means you want to be looking at a layer 2 solution. That is something like Immutable X, like these guys. They are built on top of Ethereum, but they make sure that all their transactions cost you nothing. Video game players like that. They want it to be instant and they want it to be free to transact. Let's see then. So we want transactions that are free. We want transactions that are fast. We want transactions that work in a way that benefit the player the most, not the company behind them. The next element we want to see in NFTs in any game out there is we want to see a collectability element that comes along with accomplishment, right? An NFT should mean something to a video game player. An NFT is worthless if he got it for free. But if let's say you did something really, really special and unique in your favorite video game that 0.0001% of the player base has accomplished, and you get rewarded with a very specific NFT. That is a sign of status. That is a sign of value. And it is a sign of something that someone will pay a lot of money to have when one day you might be done with that video game and they aren't. It applies real-world value to video game items without requiring you to go through the company, because you are not buying it from the company. This NFT is being bought from another player who's decided that they're done with the game and you're not, or you're done with the game and they're not. The next element we want to look at is NFTs not actually being a thing. Right? NFTs should exist in video games and not be a thing. It's not something we should talk about. It should be almost taken for granted. Because if there is a focus on NFTs and transactions and all of these things, that means that companies generally out to exploit you because they care more about the financial side of the video game than making a good video game. How many video games out there are just a gacha game system on a phone that are absolutely trash, but they make a lot of money because they exploit their players? Because they make things frustrating unless you pay for them. There is almost this weird stigma, like this weird idea with video game companies that they're going to slap on the term NFTs and everyone's going to love it. Now, the shareholders will love it because they hear NFT and they just think money. But your average player is going to fucking hate that. They hate that idea. NFT should be a thing in the background that no one even talks about. It's just there. The same as it's taken for granted that you're going to have character controls that work in a video game. It's just there. The next thing you want to look for in any video game that's going to succeed is you want to see actual innovation using the technology as opposed to just retooling old stuff to work with NFTs. What is the point of putting all your microtransactions on an NFT? There's not really one. There really isn't a good reason for that. But taking NFTs and slapping them to accomplishments that make the accomplishments worth something, that are verifiably worth something, attaching them to save games that can never be deleted or removed by mistake. A good example is my wife likes playing Legend of Zelda. She got to the very end of the game, beat the game, and then when she wanted to start a new game, she accidentally deleted her save file. She can never get that back. You could take that onto an NFT system, and even if you removed the save file from the game, you could have its save state stuck in a blockchain that cannot be deleted, so no mistakes can be made. That's the element of verifiability, and it also helps you preserve your things. That's innovation, as opposed to just fixing old shit and trying to make money off of it. The next thing to look at when it comes to looking for a prospect that's going to succeed within the video game space is we're looking for metaverse-like functionality. You likely don't want this NFT to just work within one space. You want this NFT to work across multiple spaces. You want it to work across multiple video games. If you've got a series of video games, wouldn't it be nice if you could take your NFTs through all games and you could ensure that nothing like a bug or a piece of code deleted your shit or something screwed up and took away your progress? That would be really nice. So you're looking for something with like a functionality that extends beyond the video game itself, that gives you something extra, whether that be in real life, whether that be some extra functionality that extends beyond just playing the video game. The next thing you're looking for is the thing we've already mentioned. This right here. Devs using NFTs in a smart way to offload overworking, who get to focus on making a good video game. Now that's more abstract, so if you can't find that in a video game, you don't have to think it's like, you know, essential. There are a lot of dangers within the NFT space. This is because the space is new. This is because the space is fresh. It is not something that is going to be solved within the next year. For the next 2 to 3 years, this is going to be a very wild and volatile space where there will be fortunes made and plenty of fortunes lost. With that being said, you need to know something about the space. There are very few people in crypto who are deep in crypto who know or use NFTs at all. Right? This is a very niche space. It will expand. It will get larger. It means there will be multiple opportunities, but you have to be careful while it's small. High risk, high reward. So find the things that are good, and if you find out something is bad, get rid of it immediately. Another danger you need to know of in the NFT space is you will only ever hear about the successes and not the failures. So this is one of the biggest problems with NFTs. Oh, dude, I bought an NFT for like $25,000 and I sold it for $5 million. Yeah, but you won't hear about the 500,000 other shitty NFTs out there that some guy lost, like some guy bought, and he lost all his money and it's illiquid, so he can't trade it for anything else. This right here is not the norm. Me getting pieces of land in the sandbox that are on average worth about $11,000 each is not the fucking norm. Most people, just like with trading, just like with derivatives, most people are going to, they'll feel some form of FOMO, they'll jump in on a project, and they will lose money. Take your time. It is better for you to miss out on a good project that could have made you a lot of money than you to jump in on some other project that loses you everything. Also, you shouldn't be playing in the space with more money than you're willing to lose. Keep that in mind. What else? What are the other dangers we have to deal with? Like I said, the people making money are the ones selling shovels, not the ones digging for gold. Right? The people developing these games, the people developing these NFTs, the people doing these things are selling you the shovel, and you are digging for gold by buying the NFT, which is what makes this space so dangerous. There is no guarantee of you getting a reward. There's no guarantee of you getting a return. But you did still buy something from them, so they definitely made something off of you. So you gotta be careful in this space. That's going to keep on happening until the space is more developed, until there are certain specific good projects, just like in crypto, that are better than others and more likely to succeed. The next problem is the one I already discussed, which is that NFTs are not nearly as liquid as you think they are. You might need to sell an NFT to pay for something, which hopefully you shouldn't, because you shouldn't be playing with more money in the space than you're willing to lose. But if you need to sell an NFT for something and you're selling it at a loss, that's going to hurt. Or worst case, you really need that money and you can't even sell that NFT because no one wants to buy it, because that thing you bought is not worth anything. So you have to be careful about that. The next thing you need to know is that no NFT project is going to last forever. This is just culture. This is just down to the cultural element of human beings. Nothing lasts forever. No cultural phenomenon lasts forever. There will be new NFTs that make a lot of money. There will be old NFTs that lose a lot of money. You don't want to be the one holding the bag. If you get the opportunity to sell for a profit, do it. In the sandbox, I have one large chunk of land. I had a medium-sized chunk of land, and I had a few small pieces of land. I've already made my money back on the sandbox. Like 30 times over, I made my money back. But, so like if I lost all value in the sandbox tomorrow, I've still made a profit. I'm already out of that space with a profit. At this point, it's just added capital on top of what I've got. Make sure that at the bare minimum, if you get into NFTs and someone is offering you a higher price, that you are making it out of the space with at least your initial capital. I would recommend, not financial advice, but I would recommend, if you are uncertain about an NFT project or you've got doubts and someone is offering you your initial purchase price plus 15%, take it and get out. I know that seems low, but it is better to do that than to be stuck holding something worthless that you spent a lot of money on. The next thing that we need to worry about is the copyright element, right? You don't own the copyright to your NFTs unless expressly stated by the project that is selling them, unless expressly stated in any contractual way that is in record. You do not own the copyright to any of the NFTs you own. That is not your IP. That is not your thing. So, if you've bought something thinking you own the copyright, you're about to get royally screwed because you don't. So don't go thinking you get to do whatever the hell you want with your NFT, which is also why I'm very scared of the art space, because at least in the video game space, you get some utility out of it. You could go take an NFT and you've now purchased this NFT and you think you own the copyright. You do something that breaks that copyright law. The people who initially made that NFT can come after you and they will win in court against you and screw you as hard as possible. So be very, very careful. Unless expressly stated, you do not own the copyright alongside the NFT you have purchased. The next part is you need to be aware, and this is the last point, you need to be aware. How do I put this? That's probably the best way I can think to put it. You need to be very, very aware of how many predatory companies and people are in the NFT space. There are, like, I would be willing to bet that right now, within the art space alone, 98% of all the art that you find out there is a scam. Is some form of Ponzi or money laundering or some bullshit that's just trying to convince you to spend your money on it and gives you no value back in return. Be aware of that. You need to understand how dangerous this space is, because if you don't, you will be screwed over and you will be left with no money, and they will walk away laughing up their sleeves because you know what? It was a valid transaction and you decided to make it. They just put it up for that price and you got screwed over. That responsibility lies on you. So be very, very careful. The space is going to be predatory. There are going to be scams. There are going to be millions of dollars lost in the NFT space before we figure this out and before it's actually a legitimate space to be in. So be very careful with what you do in the space. Now, that's about it for my NFT talk. I think the last thing I need to probably mention is where are NFTs going in the future? This is my prediction. This is my pie in the sky. I'm not God. I can't tell you everything about the space magically, but this is the prediction I see because I've seen this play out before. I am willing to bet NFTs are going to collapse because they are highly speculative, because they are highly based on sentiment currently. You have to understand very well what NFTs have value before you go ahead and purchase them. So NFTs will collapse. That's my prediction. After they collapse, that is when we will start to see the real value start to show through, because people who are using NFTs for the right reasons don't really care that much about the price. They care more about the technology, and they will work on their projects despite how crappy and shitty the price is. But the scam artists will leave because they're not making a profit. After this collapse, it will be much like we saw in Bitcoin, much like we saw in DeFi, much like we've seen in staking, like we've seen in launch pools, like we've seen in IDOs. It will explode after its collapse. So it will collapse, go down, suffer for a little while. Everyone will think it's shit. Everyone will laugh their ass off going, ha ha ha, NFTs are crap. And that's when the real value starts to explode into the space. That's when we will see people looking at NFTs for IP protection. That's when we'll see it used in real estate, in business contracts. We'll see real world valid uses for authentication and verification of specific things. We'll see it in IDs. We will see it in multiple ecosystems out there. But that is a long way out in the future. For now, you have to be very careful, you have to be patient, and you have to wait and see. Because if you do not, you will be screwed over very quickly. For anyone who wants to take like some small amount of Ethereum and potentially make a 22,000% return on it, this is my advice. My advice is be patient. You do not need to jump in on every project that's just launched. Take your time. Understand the space. If you find a good project and you monitor it and you don't invest in on it and you think this is going to explode and you decide not to throw money into it because you don't feel comfortable yet and it does explode, congratulate yourself. That's great. That means you are starting to understand the space. That is more valuable than making some short-term gain by being an idiot and just throwing money into garbage and getting lucky. Because that's how you lose a lot more money than you gain. The next piece of advice is understanding before action. And that's not just learning. That's understanding your specific niche. That is understanding exactly what you are getting yourself into. What does this project do? How does it operate? What is its transaction fees? What kind of network is it based on? Where do I find this within the ecosystem? Why do I think this has a future? Understand as much as you can about any specific project before you go and buy an NFT on it. You are much safer just buying the token. If you are looking at a project, you can do a lot less research and probably get away with it than you can if you go into NFTs. And third is find a niche. I like video games because I understand video games. I am in the video game space because it makes sense to me. I enjoy video games, and so I have a very good idea of what's going to work and what's not. If I went and tried to look at NFTs for fashion, I would be screwed so quickly. I don't understand that space. I have not been in that space for years. I don't comprehend it at a fundamental level, but someone else will. So whereas I might screw up in a certain space, someone else who is more used to that space is way more likely to succeed because they know exactly what will work and what won't. This is the same for the art space. Right? There are people who are experts at art and they will understand it and they know what's going to work and they know every other project is garbage, they will jump in on that and they will succeed. Because they know what they're doing in that niche. Find a niche, and you have plenty of opportunity to do that in NFTs because we are still so young, so at the beginning of where NFTs are going to be, that it's difficult to comprehend where we will even be 2 years from now, let alone 10. Take your time. It's okay. You're gonna miss things. You've already missed things. You didn't buy Microsoft when it was tiny. You didn't buy Amazon when it was tiny, and that's fine. It's okay. The same thing is going to happen. You don't need to win a million times. You can fail a million times and just win once. But make sure your failures are small and your successes are big. The last thing I think is I should give you a starting point. After that massive talk, after probably putting you to sleep, here's your starting point. I recommend you start in these 4 places. It's good to get a very negative view on NFTs to begin with, because it'll help you understand how many scams are out there. I recommend watching Devin Nash's video on NFTs and why they are the future of gaming. He's a digital marketer. He knows the space. He's very good at what he does. Next video I recommend is NFTs. What the hell are NFTs by Josh Strife Hayes. He has a very negative view on NFTs, but he's not wrong. He's very much not wrong about a lot of the things in the NFT space. Next video is NFTs, blockchain games are here, what you should know. This guy, Linus, his team, they've got a pretty sensible point of view. They do say some stupid things in here. And I mean, you can use my talk to see if you can spot them, but they're not bad. Their view on it is fairly balanced, but it'll give you a broader scope idea of what to look for. And the last one is this talk by CoffeeZilla called Right-Clicking All the NFTs. He talks to a guy who's an expert, who's gone and dug through all of this stuff. And he understands from a technical standpoint what NFTs are and why so many of them are an absolute scam, right? Have a negative bias towards NFTs because it'll help you spot what is not worth your time. If any of what I've said is confusing, if anything about this NFT stuff I have missed or not covered, tell me now or forever hold your peace, because that should be enough to start anyone off in the NFT space. Is there a specific platform you go on when looking for new potential promising NFT games? Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so there's a few places I go. So I like going to CoinGecko, and you go to NFT related coins, right? All of these will tell you all of these projects. All you need to do is click on a project and it will take you to their website. This helps you. This is a good starting point for research. This allows you to go directly to their websites, find out what network they're on and whether they'll be worth your time or not. It helps you figure out what's going to be worth it and what's not. Another place to go is the absolute cesspool called Twitter. What a shithole. God, what a horrible place. No human being should have to suffer through Twitter. But you know what? If you want to find games, this might be the place to go. All you have to do is do this. You go into the search bar and you type in, and this takes you down the rabbit hole. You will find different opinions, you will find different really retarded posts here, but every now and then you will find a good project that you can look deeper into, right? So doing this, I found the Blockchain Game Alliance, right? That let me find their profile, which then let me find their website, which then let me find out that their website is fucked, that there's more here that lets me research further into certain games. So Splinterlands, which I don't like, by the way. They listed the Sandbox above there. They've got a whole bunch of these different studios that are looking into NFTs, right? So we've seen Fear. You've seen that in my wallet. You've seen Ubisoft fuck it up. Animoca Brands is GMEE. We know that it's going to be on the Polygon network. There's a whole bunch of different shit here that you can then start researching. And it kind of goes into a kind of like a rabbit hole. So be careful where you go and don't get caught too far down the rabbit hole. Find decent projects. And if it looks shitty on the surface or you spot something that's a little bit suspicious, maybe it's time to move on. So that is the end of my NFT talk. Thank you for coming. Like, comment, subscribe, or don't do that. I'm not your dad. Do whatever you want. This is not going to be optimized for the YouTube algorithm. This is technically my dad's birthday present. So happy birthday, Dad. I hope this helps you understand the NFT space, and you're probably going to message me with some really weird questions about the space because it is very confusing. It is very new. It is very fresh, and there are very many scams out there, but that does not mean there is not value out here to be had.